Earth Day is an annual event celebrated around the world on April 22 to demonstrate support for environmental protection. First celebrated in 1970, it now includes events coordinated globally by the Earth Day Network in more than 193 countries. 2. In 1969 at a UNESCO conference in San Francisco, peace activist John McConnell proposed a day to honor the Earth and the concept of peace, to first be celebrated on March 21, 1970, the first day of spring in the Northern Hemisphere. This Day of Nature's Equipoise was later sanctioned in a proclamation written by McConnell and signed by Secretary-General U Thant at the United Nations. A month later, a United States Senator Gaylord Nelson proposed the idea to hold a nationwide environmental teach-in on April 22, 1970. He hired a young activist, Dennis Hayes, to be the national coordinator. Nelson and Hayes renamed the event Earth Day. Nelson was later awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom Award in recognition of his work. 3. The first Earth Day was focused on the United States. In 1990, Dennis Hayes, the original national coordinator in 1970, took it international and organized events in 141 nations. 4, 5, 6. On Earth Day 2016, the landmark Paris Agreement was signed by the United States, China, and some 120 other countries. 7, 8, 9. This signing satisfied a key requirement for the entry into force of the historic draft Climate Protection Treaty adopted by consensus of the 195 nations present at the 2015 United Nations Climate Change Conference in Paris. Numerous communities celebrate Earth Day Week, an entire week of activities focused on the environmental issues that the world faces. 10. On January 28, 1969, a well drilled by Union Oil platform off the coast of Santa Barbara, California, blew out. More than 3 million gallons of oil spewed, killing more than 10,000 seabirds, dolphins, seals, and sea lions. As a reaction to this disaster, activists were mobilized to create environmental regulation, environmental education, and Earth Day. Among the proponents of Earth Day were the people in the front lines of fighting this disaster: Selma Rubin, Mark McGuinness, and Bud Bottoms, founder of Get Oil Out. 11. Dennis Hayes, organizer of Earth Day Observance Day, said that Senator Gaylord Nelson from Wisconsin was inspired to create Earth Day upon seeing Santa Barbara Channel 800 square mile oil slick from an airplane. 11-12. On the first anniversary of the oil blowout, January 28, 1970, Environmental Rights Day was celebrated, where the Declaration of Environmental Rights was read. It had been written by Rod Nash during a boat trip across the Santa Barbara Channel while carrying a copy of Thomas Jefferson's Declaration of Independence. 11. The organizers of Environmental Rights Day, led by Mark McGuinness, had been working closely over a period of several months with Congressman Pete McCloskey, RCA, to consult on the creation of the National Environmental Policy Act, the first of many new environmental protection laws sparked by the national outcry about the blowout/oil spill and on the Declaration of Environmental Rights. Both McCloskey, Earth Day co-chair with Senator Gaylord Nelson, and Earth Day organizer Dennis Hayes, along with Senator Alan Cranston, Paul Ehrlich, David Brower and other prominent leaders, endorsed the declaration and spoke about it at the Environmental Rights Day conference. According to Francis Sarguis, the conference was sort of like the baptism for the movement. According to Hayes, this was the first giant crowd he spoke to that felt passionately, really passionately, about environmental issues. Hayes also thought the conference might be the beginning of a real movement. 11. Nash, Garrett Hardin, McGuinness and others went on to develop the first undergraduate environmental studies program of its kind at the University of California at Santa Barbara. 13. The first Earth Day celebrations took place in 2,000 colleges and universities, roughly 10,000 primary and secondary schools, and hundreds of communities across the United States. More importantly, it brought 20 million Americans out into the spring sunshine for peaceful demonstrations in favor of environmental reform. 14. It now is observed in 192 countries, and coordinated by the nonprofit Earth Day Network, chaired by the first Earth Day 1970 organizer Dennis Hayes, according to whom Earth Day is now the largest secular holiday in the world, celebrated by more than 1 billion people every year. 15. Walt Kelly created an anti-pollution poster featuring his comic strip character Pogo with the quotation "We have met the enemy and he is us" to promote the 1970 Earth Day. Environmental groups have sought to make Earth Day into a day of action to change human behavior and provoke policy changes. 16. In the winter of 1969 to 1970, a group of students met at Columbia University to hear Dennis Hayes talk about his plans for Earth Day. Among the group were Fred Kent, Pete Granis, and Kristen and William Hubbard. This group agreed to head up the New York City activities within the national movement. Fred Kent took the lead in renting an office and recruiting volunteers. The big break came when Mayor Lindsay agreed to shut down Fifth Avenue for the event. A giant cheer went up in the office on that day, according to Kristen Hubbard, now Kristen Alexander. From that time on we used Mayor Lindsay's offices and even his staff. I was speaker coordinator but had tremendous help from Lindsay's staffer Judith Crichton. In addition to shutting down Fifth Avenue, Mayor John Lindsay made Central Park available for Earth Day. In Union Square, New York Times estimated crowds of up to 20,000 people at any given time and, perhaps, more than 100,000 over the course of the day. 17. Since Manhattan was also the home of NBC, CBS, ABC, the New York Times, Time, and Newsweek, it provided the best possible anchor for national coverage from their reporters throughout the country. 18. U.S. Senator Edmund Muskie was the keynote speaker on Earth Day in Fairmount Park in Philadelphia. Other notable attendees included consumer protection activist and presidential candidate Ralph Nader, landscape architect Ian McHarg, Nobel Prize-winning Harvard biochemist George Wald, U.S. Senate Minority Leader Hugh Scott, and poet Allen Ginsberg. Mobilizing 200 million people in 141 countries and lifting the status of environmental issues onto the world stage, Earth Day activities in 1990 gave a huge boost to recycling efforts worldwide and helped pave the way for the 1992 United Nations Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. Unlike the first Earth Day in 1970, this 20th anniversary was waged with stronger marketing tools, greater access to television and radio, and multi-million-dollar budgets.